promise, President Buhari inaugurates Oredo Integrated Gas Handling Facility.
Brings us a step closer to self-sufficiency in liquefied petroleum gas production.
Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 gets extension of mandate to March 2021.
The Presidential Task Force is recalibrating to enable it to respond to a more effective manner to the new dynamics thrown up by the pandemic.
FCT Ministerial Task Force on COVID-19 begins enforcement of safety protocol compliance in Abuja.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall delve into a single Africa market implementation.
The African Continental Free Trade Area has been described as one of the largest free trade areas in the world. Right now, looking at its potential market of 1.2 billion people and a combined gross domestic product of $2.5 trillion, that is when measured by the number of countries participating so far.
That milestone follows action that was taken way back in 2015, specifically at the 25th Summit of the African Union, which was held in South Africa. At that summit, African heads of state and government agreed to launch negotiations on the creation of, the Continental Free Trade Agreement area. And through negotiations, of course, on the liberalization of trade in goods and services to boost intra-African trade, which has been suffering for decades.
And Nigeria signed the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement on July 7th, 2019, during the 12th Extraordinary Summit of Heads of State and Government in Niamey, and ratified her membership way before the December 5th, 2020 deadline.
Indeed, and now the agreement, which comes into effect from the 1st of January 2021, is expected to cover all 55 African countries and bring 30 million Africans out of poverty. That's an estimated 30 million Africans out of poverty. It is also expected to raise the incomes of over 68 million others who live on less than $5 per day.
All right. Though existing barriers and costs have been the major impediment to intra-Africa trade, the agreement is expected to foster trade facilitation measures among member countries, cut through border red tape and simplify customs procedures, as well as reduce tariffs and the technical barriers to trade within the free trade area. So
now, as experts are saying, for the African Continental Free Trade Agreement to yield its intended results and benefits, it must be backed by right legal framework, right policies, and robust implementation. And so, how is it expected to benefit Africans in and outside the continent?
Now, experts are also saying that achieving the agreement's full potential will depend on putting policy reforms and trade facilitation measures in place. Now, how committed have African countries been to putting all these measures in place? And Claire, this is a very important question here, because even at the regional level, where we have the ECOWAS, it does appear that all member nations do not really adhere to the protocol.
There are quite a number of issues, Kieran, but I want to believe that member countries, that's the EU member countries, yes, have been able to leverage, the lessons learned from the different regional economic communities. There are quite a number of them within Africa, which is supposed to crystallize into the single market. So it is expected that each of the blocks would have leveraged the lessons, learned from their respective, areas.
Yes, and that hoping we're not going to toe the line of Anglophone, Francophone issue, which has been there over the years.
Well, that is all part part of the lessons, learned. And I'm sure that those who are negotiating, these single market would have taken those, gaps into consideration. Precisely. So we are hoping, and that's part of the issues that we will, of course, be discussing on today's program. And of course, customs officials across, Africa have also met and agreed on continental guidelines to enable the movement of goods and services and people for the successful implementation of the Free Trade Area Agreement. Now, another question that comes to mind is, what next towards ensuring the agreement kicks off smoothly on January the 1st, 2021? Specifically for Nigeria, do we have the enabling infrastructural facilities, enabling infrastructural structures, institutional structures to complement, of course, the other regional economic communities? These are some of the pertinent issues that may likely come up, or will likely come up this Wednesday morning on the program. I am Claire Dilabo Abdulrazak, and you are watching Good Morning Nigeria this Wednesday.
And I am Kyrian Umar. Many thanks for joining us. Good Morning Nigeria today, reaching you live on the network service of the NTA. And we shall, of course, include our companion segments, such as newspaper review, business, and others in the package this morning. For now, let's join Chimaobi Watanaji as he brings us highlights of the news for Wednesday morning. Hello, Chimaobi.
Hello, good morning, Kyrian and Claire. It's good to see you. Good morning, Nigeria. Here is the morning news. In furtherance of the federal government's gas utilization agenda aimed at ensuring effective utilization and monetization of the nation's gas resources, an integrated gas handling facility as well as liquefied petroleum gas storage and dispensing plants have been inaugurated. President Muhammadu Buhari, who performed this ceremony, virtually described the waste to wealth facility situated at Oredo, Edo State as promise delivered.
To self-sufficiency in liquefied petroleum gas production and also supporting the growth of small and medium enterprises in the host communities. This project will create hundreds of direct and indirect employment opportunities for our teeming youth, both skilled and unskilled.
And following the surge in the number of coronavirus cases across the country, President Muhammadu Buhari has extended the mandate of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 to the end of March next year. Receiving the end-of-year report of the Task Force on the National Response to Global Pandemic, the President said with new epicenters now identified, Nigeria cannot afford to lose the gains achieved in the last 9 months.
And all members would want to assure you and wish to restate that they are more determined and rededicated to ensure that we overcome this pandemic and return our country and our people to normalcy.
In the meantime, the FCT Ministerial Task Force has commenced enforcement on COVID-19 safety protocol compliance in Abuja. FCT Commissioner of Police Bala Chiroma led the enforcement team on the first day of the exercise. Now, some 999 new cases of COVID-19 has been announced by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC. Now, these new cases increase the total number of confirmed cases to 79,789 in the country. Of these 999 new infections, the FCT recorded the highest of 416. Lagos comes second with 324. Kaduna 68. Plateau has 42. Kwara recorded 32 cases. Kano 24, Gombe has 14, Sokoto and Yobe 12 each, Akwa Ibom 11, Bayelsa 10, Rivers and Bauchi have 7 new cases each. Now Ogun State has 6, Oyo 5, Edo and Taraba confirmed 4 each, while Jigawa recorded 1 new case. On total number of cases per state, Lagos has altogether confirmed 27,900 27,091 cases, followed by the FCT with 10,122 cases. Kaduna is coming next with 4,628, while Plateau has recorded 4,304 COVID-19 cases. Now, there are currently some 9,679 active cases being managed across the country, with 68,879 recovered patients discharged, with 1,231 deaths on record to date. The Nigerian Governors Forum has commended the commitment of Zamfara State Governor Mohammed Bello in the fight against banditry and abduction in Zamfara State and the northwest region of the country. A four-member delegation of the forum, led by its chairman and governor of Ekiti State, Kayode Fayemi, described the insecurity in Zamfara State as regrettable and pledged the forum's continued support to end the state of restlessness and abduction.
Security situation in the country is not a Northwest problem. It's a Nigeria's problem. So all of us must do whatever we can within our powers to put a stop to it. And we can only do that if we work collectively.
And for the governor of Zamfara State, the solidarity visit will serve as a morale booster in this onslaught against banditry and abduction in the state and the northwest region. Now, following a successful rescue of all the 344 abducted students of Government Science Secondary School, Kankara, many of the students have returned to their regular activities, putting behind the agony of their abduction.
I thank Katsina State with that helping what they are helping them students.
I thank government for rescuing us. My dream is to become a medical doctor in the future.
All right, and that concludes the news highlights this morning. Good morning, Nigeria. On implementing single African market, we'll continue after the break with Claire and Kiran. I'm Chimubi Walter Naji. Good morning.
A scorecard like no other. Government has put in place measures and initiatives principally targeted at youths, women, and the most vulnerable groups in our society. These included broad plan to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in the next 10 years. The creation of 75 billion naira National Youth Investment Fund to provide opportunities for the youths, and the Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Survivor Fund, through which government is A. paying 3-month salaries of the staff of 100,000 micro, small and medium enterprises. B. paying for the registration of 250,000 businesses at the Corporate Affairs Commission. C. giving a grant of 30,000 naira to 100,000 artisans and guaranteeing market for the product of traders. These are in addition to many other initiatives such as farmer money, trader money, market money, N-Power, N-Tech, and N-Agro. These and more in spite of a recession and a global pandemic. Although social media as a channel of communication is inherently harmless, it becomes harmful and damaging when used without discretion and thoughtfulness. Bad social media users spread rumors and fake news without verification. But good social media users stop, reflect, and verify information before sharing it. Be a good social media user. Stop the spread of fake news. Verify the authenticity of your source and use social media responsibly for a better Nigeria. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, in collaboration with the National Orientation Agency. the counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Life can be very eventful. We curiously expect things to happen, even when we don't know what. Our human nature makes us like and repost lots of information. Some are unverified, inciting anger and hate. Sometimes innocently, other times the urge to break it first. This, in most cases, has caused destruction in many nations.
After a 7-goal demolition at the hands of the champions last time out, will Crystal Palace enjoy a Merry Christmas when they visit Villa Park? This Saturday, it's Aston Villa versus Crystal Palace on the Premier League Live, showing on the NTA network from 3:30 p.m. The Premier League Live is brought to you by Access Bank, Baba Ijebu, Lipton, and Close Up, in association with Goal.com.
The program is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We now join Comfort Amodu for news from the world of business.
Track the funds that have been stocked out of the country.
From the creation of systemic mechanism like Treasury Single Account and the Integrated Personnel Payroll Information System, IPPIS, to whistleblower policy and more to ensure accountability, transparency, and adequate financial appropriation of public funds, government has been exploring numerous mechanisms to prune the rising costs and waste in government. The reality of the new normal has also made it critical for government to review the cost of governance to block leakages, looting, and illicit financial flows to prevent the economy from further shocks. The need to develop firm policies and mechanisms to curtail cost of governance and corruption took center stage during a virtual conversation by key players put together by the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption, PACAC.
What should be the greater priority? Is it to develop society through education, through healthcare, through housing, through economic development? We need to understand that we cannot have security, we cannot have peace in this country where our policies are not geared towards the welfare of citizens.
E-governance therefore remains the best in encouraging transparency and accountability and reducing costs and waste and corruption in government business, and should be adopted across all the arms and tiers of government in Nigeria.
So we're looking at expanding the mandate of the Public Complaints Commission to call it the Public Interest Disclosure and Complaints Commission, and that would require amending the Constitution. Witness protection is also there.
Cutting the cost of governance will definitely stabilize our country. And by the time we become futuristic, the possibility is everybody will know that nobody is taking undue advantage of the system.
We now head to the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange to see the value of stocks and shares the exchange hands at the end of the trading session. With business news, Comfort Amodu.
Okay, coming up next is the newspaper review with Bayo Atoyebi.
And Bayo is here with us for another day's review of some national dailies. Bayo, it's a good pleasure to have
Thank you, Kelly. Good morning. Good morning, Claire.
Good morning,
Good
Bayo.
morning, Nigeria.
Good to have you with us.
Thank you.
All right, let's begin with the Nation newspaper. The Nation, above the nameplate of the Nation newspaper, bandits kill 7, kidnap 3 in Kaduna. That's on page 2. News: passengers of Abuja-bound bus abducted in Edo. That's on page 2. Palace: Olu of Warri not dead but indisposed. There's an uneasy calm in the city. That's a writer to that headline. It's on page 4. Now, the main headline this morning on the Nation: federal government intensifies push for COVID-19 vaccine. With the rider, ministers, there will be no lockdown. Travel ban not likely. Now, below the photo story there, where we have a number of governors, we have varsity teachers get 2-month salary arrears. ASU may call off strike today. Capital Market puts public offers online. The two stories can be found on page 3 of the newspaper. Now, Wike APC governors clash on performance. Zulum offers Xmas largesse to soldiers. That's on page 4. Both stories actually on page 4 of the Nation. All right, Claire.
Okay, thank you, Kieran. And the Daily Trust this morning is quite slim. The issues are quite slim, but of course they're very profound. The lead story says a second wave is on second wave. Buhari asks governors to take over fight. And it comes with 3 riders, extends COVID-19 task force mandate to March. Our health system can't withstand major outbreak. That's the presidential task force on COVID-19. And the last rider there says different tales in states. Still staying on COVID-19 issue, you see a picture story. Travelers waiting to board commercial vehicle, and you see none of them there is wearing any protective either face mask or shield, and that is at Zuba Park in Abuja yesterday, despite, of course, the warnings and cautions by the Presidential Task Force. That is there. All right, let's look at other trending stories. Criminals plotting to bomb public places during Yuletide. That's coming from DSS, and this story has been trending. It has been trending. That's a big one in there, so everyone should be on the lookout. Well, let's take you a little below the nameplate where other stories are trending. Only God can supervise Niger border. Details of that on page 4. And if you do read the details of that, you'll find out, of course, who that quotation is being attributed to. And also set to suspend strike, page 6. Hopefully, they will do that today, given that the papers have also reported agreement between government and the ASU body. Now, the sad news again: gunmen abduct village head and 15 others in Katsina. On page 15. Bayo.
Well, let's start with the development on COVID-19. The mandate of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 has been extended to March next year. This followed the brief they provided to the President, and the President was categorical when he said that this extension is due to the fact that new tendencies have been identified, and therefore there is need to consolidate the gains we have made in the past 9 months. Accordingly, he called on for vigilance and decisive action for Nigerians to protect themselves. Traditional and religious leaders are to cooperate with the Presidential Task Force, and there's also called for collective effort for persons to take responsibility, especially in risk communication and community engagements. The Presidential Task Force is also to coordinate the strategy for access, delivery, and administration of vaccine using our past extension services already established. Nigerians are urged to be very wary and vigilant, especially during festive season, to avoid non-essential travels and especially large social gatherings. The Minister of Information, however, has provided some clarification that there are no fears of any lockdown. Measures are now being taken to reduce the chances of mass gathering. This is why public officers, he says, below level 12 are to work from home. And there's restriction on social gathering, and this will be seriously enforced. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control says that recent increases for COVID-19 cases are attributable to increased local and international travels, business and religious activities with least compliance with COVID-19 safety measures. You recall the report that Claire just read now. It shows our compatriots who are traveling around the country at Zuba Park, and nobody is wearing any protective devices. The advisory from the NSDC are that we should, as much as possible, avoid mass gathering during the Christmas and Yuletide period. We must continue to wear our face mask wherever we go outside, especially with emphasis in areas that there are mass gathering. He says we want people to celebrate responsibly, but we must remember the virus spread very rapidly in enclosures, and therefore we should avoid enclosures. The head of civil service of the Federation has also directed security manning all public offices to ensure that only officers of grade level 13 and above are granted access to public offices. A circular signed by Dr. Folashade Yemiyesan takes effect today, and this followed the approval of the recommendation by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19. Officers on grade level 12 and below are not only to stay at home, but they are to work from home. The other matter of concern is the one raised about by the bombing alert by the Department of State Services. They say that they are warning every one of us that some persons are intending to use some explosive to disrupt the peace of the nation during this Yuletide period. The department says that it's taking these steps to warn and prevent such attack nationwide, but also they alert the nation and everybody that warn those who are planning it to stop from any of their intentions to disrupt public peace. The department says that public places and key areas that are vulnerable, people should be very careful, especially about gathering, and they warn about explosive, suicide bombing, and dangerous weapons. They say if you see anything, please say something so that collectively we can help to protect one another. Governors of the Governors Forum have gone to Katsina to commiserate with their brother counterparts, Governor Bello Masari of Katsina State, over the abduction of 344 students who regained their freedom. At that forum, the chairman of the Governors Forum and Governor of Ekiti State said Nigerian governors will be tough on banditry, kidnapping, and find a lasting solution to prevailing security challenges. They said they are working with concerted efforts with governors and commitment of the federal government, as well as professional conduct of security services, and we shall end criminality and bring peace in our nation. He also emphasized that social investment initiatives among the programs of government, which will engage youth will become an alternative of livelihood that will take them away from crime. And they declared, we will work together to return our country to peace, progress, development, and prosperity.
Well, just before you go, the issue with COVID-19,
yes,
and the warnings, and of course those travelings, I think that the PTF should do much more. I don't know, within their mandate, within the powers, and if they don't have that powers, I think there is need for such powers now. We've seen, even over time, that in additional these warnings, restriction on social gatherings, use of non-pharmaceutical, shields, have not been complied with. Or rather, they have done that in the breach. And that is why the nonchalant and complacent attitude of Nigerians, is precipitating the community spread. And so I would want to see a situation where, these warnings and restrictions are matched with some stringent form. We've seen stories flying in the social media of some form of levy, punishment, maybe, fine, if you may, of not wearing face masks. I don't know how true that is. In Lagos, for instance, we hear that if you do not wear your face mask, you're liable to a certain amount of fine. I don't know how true that is. But that is a way to get people to comply with this wearing of face masks.
Well, we have used the approach of persuasion. And apparently it's not working, because when you persuade people to comply with non-pharmaceutical initiatives, it means they have to do so at their free will. But there are also some initiatives to compel that. You remember in FCT, there was a task force that was going about enforcing that, especially issues of mass gathering, and they were disrupting that. In Kaduna State, if you don't wear face mask and you are arrested, you are subject to a fine. And Lagos also was one of the factors you comply. When persuasion fails, then certainly you have to use the other one, the stick method. Actually, that is by legislation.
Only in cross-river states that one can really boast of effectiveness of use of masks. Because in Abuja here, I just saw in our news segment, where some members of Abuja task force, were just entering a box, saying they're enforcing the use of masks. It's not going to work, because if you move around Abuja, you discover that, look, nobody is adhering to, especially in marketplaces. That is the place of real gathering of people.
Not just the market.
And at motor parks, marketplaces, there are weddings going on in Abuja, several weddings, over the weekend.
So high-profile social functions.
And nobody bothers about using masks in those places. I've seen some of them. Nobody was wearing masks.
And all of that. If you see the recent increases, they are also reflecting that, because in Lagos, in Abuja, in Kaduna, the numbers are going on the increase. And these are the areas where abandonment has been the order of the day as far as the pharmaceutical initiatives.
Exactly, but time is not on our side. But what we don't even know is whether we have a new strain of this virus in the first place. Because, until that is investigated, we're able to understand whether there's a new strain like we have in the UK at the moment.
The UK strain is is another kettle of fish. But even before we get to UK strain, Kaduna State reported that the tendency they have noticed is between the age bracket of 10 to 35 years. And that was why they quickly closed their schools, because it has now scaled from adults now and is getting to the younger children. So that is danger.
All right, Bayo. Thank you very much indeed for your analysis. We hope to see you again tomorrow for more. This is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We'll take another break, but when we return, we shall of course be dealing with the topic for today. Stay with us.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together. Nigerian youths are about the greatest assets the country has at the moment. It is therefore not surprising that the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari is strategically responding to the yearnings of the youth through multiple projects and programs. Youth entrepreneurship support, yes, by Bank of Industry, the Youth Investment Fund by the CBN, and several other conditional cash transfer programs. Recruitment of 774,000 social workers, majority of whom are youth, and so many other projects that are beneficial to youths directly or indirectly. If the administration can do all this, definitely with a degree of patience and time, it can achieve more. Nigerian youths must come together to say no to terrorism, no to vandalism, and no to all disruptive tendencies. Hashtag Youth for Greater Nigeria. Pacifying the youths, unifying the nation.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, Is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous. Whether you do it for fun or for political gains, real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
Do you know that 35% of every girl child and women are raped on daily basis? Some are killed in the process, some take their lives in shame, others remain emotionally dead for life. It is sad. This culture is not ours, definitely not African. How did we allow bad culture to infiltrate and take over? Even if you lack fear for the law, what of fear of God? And you, why do you cover up rape acts when it happens? Remember, a problem shared is a problem half solved. Never cover any rape act because a rapist is a murderer. It could be you or your loved ones next. Women must be treated like the prize gem they are. Say no to rape.
After a 7-goal demolition at the hands of the champions last time out, will Crystal Palace enjoy a Merry Christmas when they visit Villa Park? This Saturday, it's Aston Villa versus Crystal Palace on the Premier League Live, showing on the NTA network from 3:30 p.m. The Premier League Live is brought to you by Access Bank, Baba Ijebu, Lipton, and Close Up, in association with Goal.com.
All right, welcome back. This is Good Morning Nigeria. Now, the prospects for a single African market is quite huge indeed, not just for the countries or participating countries, but for big businesses and for SMEs and also for individual entrepreneurs. Come January 1st, 2021, that will take off. Sounds very seamless, or is it? And that's what we will be looking at today on this edition of Good Morning Nigeria. But before then, let's background our conversation a bit, and Victor Azo did that for us.
As at 3rd December 2020, 32 countries have both signed and approved ratification of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, including Nigeria. Of the 55 Africa Union member states, only Eritrea has yet to sign. With the main objectives of creating a single continental market for goods and services, with free movement of business persons and investments, thus paving the way for accelerating the establishment of the customs union, the agreement will be governed by 5 operational instruments, namely the rules of origin, the online negotiating forum, the monitoring and elimination of non-tariff barriers, a digital payment system, and the African Trade Observatory. The Free Trade Agreement is expected to bring together 54 of the 55 member states of the African Union, covering a market of about 1.2 billion people, including a growing middle class, and a combined gross domestic product of more than $3.4 trillion. In terms of the number of participating countries, the agreement positions the market as the world's largest free trade area since the formation of the World Trade Organization. Estimates from the Economic Commission for Africa, UNECA, suggest that the African Continental Free Trade Agreement has the potential both to boost intra-African trade by 52.3% by eliminating import duties, and to double this trade if non-tariff barriers are also reduced. Now that trading under the agreement is set to begin on January 1st, 2021, how will Nigerian businesses be impacted? What does Nigeria stand to gain from signing up? How might the member nations make the most of the trade agreement? These are some of the issues that guests on Good Morning Nigeria will ruminate on.
Well, thank you, Victor Azu, for that background report. And moving on now, our guests are already seated, and we would like to start the introduction from Professor Jonathan Aremu. Professor Remo is the Professor of International Economic Relations, Covenant University, Alta, and a consultant on the ECOWAS Common Investment Market. Thank you, sir, for joining us this morning on the program.
Thank you, sir.
And also stay with us here in the studio is Dr. Ken Ukoha. He's a known face on this program. He's the President, National Association of Nigerian Traders. So it's also a pleasure to have you this morning, as always.
Thank you very much, Karen. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for joining me. Let us also introduce our next guest who will be joining us, or who is joining us from our studio in Kaduna, Professor Ishao Ango, also another familiar face, Professor of Finance and Business Entrepreneurship, Kaduna State University. Always a pleasure to have you with us.
It's a pleasure too. Thank you. Good morning.
Just to indicate that we will be having another guest as soon as we establish connection with him, Francis Anatogo, who is the Secretary of the National Action Committee on the AFCFTA and Senior Special Assistant to the President on Public Sector Matters. As soon as we get connected with him, we will introduce him. Kieran?
Yeah. Gentlemen, it's a pleasure indeed to have you on this roundtable conversation, if you like. We have something very great on our hands. The AU came up with a very, beautiful idea of this single market for African nations. And we're now talking about the implementation of this very, very noble idea that will, of course, lift Africa from the doldrum of, bad business. Now, let me begin with Professor Remo. Now, give us an idea, of what this is all about and how the implementation will commence. We're talking about 1st of January, which is, of course, less than just a few weeks away. Not a few weeks, about a week or so away. So let's have an idea of how this implementation will take its course.
Thank you, everyone, viewers, and listening to us. Well, we need to appreciate the entire Nigerian, particularly from President downward, for actually allowing us to pass through this road and then join the fellow Africans in depositing our ratification document on the 4th of December, making us a country that will participate in this process. Briefly, let me say something about economic integration. Economic integration is essentially countries coming together to give the same kind of preferential arrangement which is supported by World Trade Organization Article 24. And what are this kind of preference? What they will not give other people, they will give to themselves in terms of import duty. If it's a free trade, it's totally an import duty removal. If it's just a preferential arrangement, it's just a reduction in it. But they can equally go for that to have a custom union. Each of these stages allow creation of trade among themselves, since they are not going to be charging themselves import duty. Their goods will move freely across the borders based on very good trade facilitation environment anyway. So, and that is exactly the first phase of African Economic Community Treaty, which is referred to as Abuja Treaty of 1991, in which African head of state agreed that this particular continent, in line with our founding fathers, will actually integrate themselves so that we can benefit ourselves in terms of trading among ourselves better than other parts of the world. Hitherto, the trading level has been extremely very low, less than 15%. Quite a lot of our trade comes from Europe, comes from America, comes from China, but among ourselves, no. Yet we have tradable products. We have services that we can exchange among ourselves. So that is why the head of state come together and say, let us, in line with African Economic Community Treaty of 1991, put in place the first phase of economic integration, which is a free trade area. Other phases are custom union, after that, common market, after that, economic union. And there are deeper integration, so that in the end, Africa becomes a solidified continent, unlike the way in which the colonial masters have actually cut them into pieces. That's the arrangement. So this is the first phase of the integration, which is African continental free trade area, phase 1 of the free trade. We are still going to have phase 2 of the African continental free trade area before we move to the next stage, which is custom union. So that is the background I can give for now.
Okay, Mr. Ken, you're the president of the National Association of Nigerian Traders. Not just that, you're also involved in this process. You've been involved in this process, but trade is the central issue here. You know, the single market is supposed to pave way for African, nations to trade amongst themselves. And it is also supposed to be the second or third part in the efforts to attain larger economic integration. You have the free trade zone. Of course, you should have the common market, customs union, before you have a common market. How are things really shaping up, just less than a week to January 2021?
Okay, thank you very much. In my estimation, I think that we've seen enough political will on the part of governments of Africa, member states. Two, I've also discovered that moving a step from there is the commitment to really see this particular move consummated. And what is the signal? The signal is that as we have it today, over 32 countries have laid down the instruments of ratification of the AFCFTA, which means a total commitment to this particular movement. The trend is moving, really. And I am not seeing anything to the contrary. In fact, anything that would switch back the hand of the clock in this regard, anything that would make the 1st of January 2021 unrealistic. Now, if we step further, perhaps we may be asking a few questions now. I am sure you want to know, how prepared is Africa? How prepared is Nigeria going into the next week, which is the D-Day?
Maybe you should even start by telling us what should happen on the 1st of January 2021 with regards to the single African market.
Beautiful. On the 1st of January 2021, what will happen is exactly what would have happened when and if Nigeria had signed the Economic Partnership Agreement with European Union. I'm just giving this as an example. And which means that the tariff system would have changed. Now, in this regard, on the 1st of January, we are looking at 90% of our trade liberalized. Implementation starts off. And then the protocols on trade in goods start being effective. And of course, you see, goods originating from every country in Africa will be accorded respect. That means they will be welcomed with two hands into your territory, provided they are originating goods. You must accord them that respect. In that regard, there is nothing like, oh, these goods are coming from Burkina Faso, or these goods are coming from Ethiopia or South Africa, and you are placing tariff line. No.
Okay, so
it's a free trade.
Mr. Ikoha, before we escalate to other guests.
Yes.
So, in simple practical terms, on the 1st of January 2021, can or will members or citizens of African nations be able to do business, travel unrestricted without duties, levies, or tariffs? Is that what should happen?
There are levies. That's another thing entirely. But tariff on goods. Tariff on goods. We have a common tariff now, a common tariff system that will be applying. And that means that there is, if you like, reference and preference like Prof did use. If you like, say waiver for those goods coming from originating member states. So at the border, you are not going to raise your red flag. You are going to accord them respect. The customs is not going to charge tariff on those goods as it were before. Now, what the implication is that we might for now be losing a little revenue at the moment. And this is not just peculiar to Nigeria alone. It is for all the member states that have signed on to the AFCFTA.
Gentlemen, looking at the entire picture of, what Oko has painted, it does appear that the intricacies of this deal will take time to actually, settle down for Africans to begin to understand and even enjoy, the benefits of this very structure that have been
Absolutely.
It will take a lot of time. From
it will take some time.
Painted. Now, when Claire was particular about what happens on the 1st of January, I was also concerned about that. That is to say, okay, fine. On the 1st of January, any goods that come in from any African country through our borders should be allowed to go in. No tariff, nothing. I'm not sure there's any monitoring mechanism to also understand whether the goods are originating from the country it's coming from, or whether it's a packaged good that is coming. So that takes me to Professor Yishao Ango. Please, sir, if you understand this concept, could you, give us an idea of your understanding of the entire concept of economic integration, which of course is starting off 1st of January with the issue of free trade, as it were?
Yes, the whole idea is to encourage further unification of our economies. We have some form of relationship all around us. We have the ECOWAS, we have the Southern African Development Cooperation and other regional, post-regional bodies that have been established over the years, all aim at harmonizing or further encouraging unification of our economies, encouraging regional trade, and even encouraging movement of persons, across the various countries. So what we expect to see with this is that instead of Africa doing much of its trade with outside of the outside world, we should begin to encourage trade among ourselves. For example, over 90% of trade, that export from Africa goes to other places rather than within Africa. So that is a minus. Compare that to 60 or 50 something percent in most regions of the world. So this is aimed at encouraging trade, and I'm cautiously optimistic that something along the line will evolve. I'm not saying that on 1st January we'll wake up and see everything transform completely, but at least it's a starting point, and I believe it will encourage trade from among African countries. As it is, it's more difficult to export goods to African countries. I've watched a video where one of the prominent businessmen in Nigeria was complaining, trying even exporting cement, from a plant in Ogun State to across the border, let's say in Benin Republic, was a challenge. Now, if we have this union and we really work within the tandem of the agreement, then I expect that there will be seamless and smooth operation of business from among ourselves. I know there are a lot of hurdles, there will be a lot of challenges, and that is what we have to work for, towards to ensure that we eliminate as much as possible. And for Nigeria, we should try as much as possible to take advantage of our size, in this oncoming arrangement.
All right, Prof, thank you for your opening contributions. I'm told that Francis Anatogo is, we've connected to him, so he's Secretary of the National Action Committee on the AFCFTA and Senior Special Assistant to the President on Public Sector Matters. Mr. Anatogo, thank you for joining us. Quickly, the single market is an avenue for member countries to export goods and services for which they have competitive and comparative advantage. Specifically for Nigeria, what are the contents of our negotiations?
What are the contents of what?
Of our negotiations.
About negotiations.
Yes, I said the simple explanation for the single market is to provide opportunities for African countries, member African countries who have ratified the instrument, to be able to exchange or trade goods and services for which they have comparative and competitive advantage.
Correct.
During our negotiations, what are the contents of our negotiations?
Okay, so thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, viewers. So, like you rightly stated, it is about a single market. It is about focusing on areas where you have competitive advantage. But I think it's also important to note that as a continent, the ambition is to liberalize 90% of tariff lines, and then you have a sensitive list, which is another 7% of lines to be liberalized over a longer period. So we are talking about in total over 6,000 tradable items in terms of tariff lines. So what we have done in terms of negotiating what is being liberalized and what is not is based on those products and sectors that we've considered priority, and these are in line with what we have currently in the common external tariff, among others. So I can't specifically list specific products here, but the important thing is that it has been focused along the lines what we have now and all those products that we've considered priority. It is also important to note a conversation has been a lot on trade in goods, but it's also important to know that the single market also covers trade in services. Services cover about 50%, contribute about 50% to our GDP. Services is an area where we have immense competitive advantage, from our financial services sector to our digital services and even entertainment services. So and as well as transportation. So along several sectors of we have competitive advantage, and Nigerian businesses are already out there. And what the AFCFTA will help them do is to reduce the barriers to trade, improve access to market. For if you go back from our transportation companies to banks and so on, if you read back, you would have seen about complaints about bureaucracy and some kind of barriers put or blockers put in the
We've just lost Francis Anatole to the signal. Is not favorable at the moment. We hope that in due course we will return to him for further questions for him. Of course, as the National Action Committee Secretary of the AFCFTA. All right, now let's return to the studio here in Abuja and go straight to Professor Ango. Professor Ango, you listened to Francis, as an insider, mentioned a few things relating to how prepared Nigeria is, and of course the kind of advantage that Nigeria has on this issue. But my concern presently is actually the nature of regulations being put in place, because I'm also worried about other African nations adhering to whatever protocol that may have been established to make this work? Because I know that in the past, when Africa comes together to get something done, we will normally toe the line of Anglophone, Francophone, and what have you. And most of the Francophone countries in Africa here have serious ties, with their colonial masters, and invariably meaning that they don't have much they produce in their countries. That's to trade with Nigeria and other countries. So how is it going to be managed? Because a situation where some nations are obeying the protocol, some are not obeying the protocol. How is it going to work? How are we going to manage any kind of such situation if it arises as we move on?
Well, once again, my name is Aremu.
Aremu, rather, sorry.
We are talking about
Aremu, rather, sorry, sir.
Well, how prepared are we? I think we are prepared. The time that Nigeria have taken to be able to look at the various issues, they are never wasted. And we are members of National Action Committee, and we know quite a lot of things that ought to be done, which we have been doing. But let me say that much still have to be done. Back to what my friend was talking about on the 1st of January, I expect a situation in which the legal basis for the trading will have been settled. That is to say, the domestication of the various policies that will affect this trading is already perfected. That has not been concluded yet. You see, we have issues of trade remedies, we have issues which will affect whatever we actually embark upon in terms of our economic actors crossing borders to trade with other people, or other people coming crossing borders to trade with us. So we need to be able to see the different department, ministry, and agencies of the government that have one thing or the other, put everything together in a package of African Continental Free Trade Area policies, and then the National Assembly, we have to actually make it part and parcel of Nigerian law. I think that is being done already. I'm a member of the regulation and policy in that particular area. We are doing that already, but I think that has to be done. We cannot start crossing without actually settling that. Why? Because in the first phase of this African Continental Free Trade Area, we have trading in goods, we have trading in service protocol, as well as dispute settlement, which implies that if there's any infraction in trading goods, trading services, then that infraction will be sent to dispute settlement, and we cannot afford to actually be dragged. Since the dispute settlement or the African Continental will not be between the economic actors, but between the government, it is the responsibility of the government to be able to make sure that that area is equally settled. So I think that is very important. Also important is that we are very much familiar with trading in goods, having done that other ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme. We are familiar with issues that have to be come up in terms of tradable products. But that of trading in services mentioned by our secretary has to be actually be looked into very well. There are 5 sectors of trading in services out of 12 recognized by World Trade Organization. African Continental Free Trade is looking into 5 now. But one major thing that ought to be settled by individual country is the issue of mutual recognition agreement. That is to say that I have a service to provide, that service going to be recognized in another country. You see, because we have professional body in different countries, have we been doing that? If that has to be done, we need to be able to look at it, because that is very important. So, and that equally has to be a part and parcel of what we documented as domestication of African Continental Free Trade Area. So a lot of work is going on to make sure that there's a smooth sail into the takeoff of this process. So I would suggest that we will not have any problem, because we can capture every of the details that is involved, but we need to tidy them up domestically, because just as I said earlier, it will not be good that a Nigerian actually cross border and then going to go and commit error. If you commit the error, according to the dispute settlement body, it is the state that will actually answer that error.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Ken, I think I would want to look at what is in it for Nigeria. And this is my reason. With regards to our participation in ECOWAS, a lot of questions have been raised. I'm sure you're familiar with calls for Nigeria to quit ECOWAS because of the lopsided, advantage, because of how we negotiated ECOWAS at the onset. Now, we must not repeat the same mistake. Mr. Jonathan has raised the issues of legal framework, which needs to be done. In terms of tradable, items, what is our strength going into this union?
Okay, thank you very much. I think looking at our strength, I would say I am very comfortable with the kind of capacity we have exhibited. One, from the level of preparations. And I want to say this, Nigeria appears to be the very first country that took time to really unravel the costs and benefits of engaging or entering into an AFCFTA. That's one. Two, Nigeria also stands as the first country to embark on concise consultations among actors. And if you recall, on this particular platform, you and Kingsley, I recall very well, were here, and the Ambassador Osakwe of the blessed memory, God rest his soul, and I were here looking at the viability or otherwise of the president going to sign the AFCFTA agreement on the 21st of March 2017. And we said no. And, well, things changed. And the president listened to us and said, look, private sector has spoken. I cannot sign an agreement that is not in favor of the private sector, that the private sector has not made input. And from that time, we were able not only to embark on, some level of consultations, but also to embark on impact analysis. Of course, it's not rosy completely for Nigeria, not even for any country on the AFCFTA. But let's note, Nigeria is the largest economy in the whole of Africa as we speak. And therefore, if there is any country that should be afraid, it's not Nigeria at all on the AFCFTA. We have all it takes. But the problem we were having, some of us were having at that time, was that we never got prepared. We never analyzed the pros and cons, the costs and the benefits. Now we have seen that. I think, again, coming to what Professor Aremu said, I am looking at a situation where, yes, we have a dispute settlement mechanism created by Article 20 of the AFCFTA. But I have an issue that the same article, in Article 21, the same dispute settlement mechanism, is only approachable by the member states. So, taking a look from there, why am I concerned? I am concerned because I am a Nigerian. Now, looking at what has happened in South Africa, the xenophobic attack on Nigerians and other Africans. Looking at what we have, the problems we're having with Ghana. Many shops of Nigerians, locked, under lock and key for over a year. In fact, perennial problems since 2007. Now, how do we now constrict this particular dispute mechanism to the member states alone? Why wouldn't I, as a bona fide citizen, be able to approach the dispute settlement mechanism and say, look, dispute settlement body, I come here with my trouble. I am having problem with Ghana.
Because this is a negotiation between
member states. Quite all right.
Between states.
But this is, if you look at the Article 5 of the AFCFTA, it says, and 5B, strictly, it says that the regional economic communities are going to be the building blocks to the AFCFTA. Now, the same regional economic communities, such as ECOWAS, the treaty, in Article 1 of the treaty, recognizes me as a citizen. And it says I am a community citizen. And that's why I'm having a passport that says ECOWAS. And the same African Union is moving towards a common passport for every citizen. So if you're having a common passport for every citizen, why wouldn't that citizen also come and defend his right, pursue it?
What is your concern with that?
My concern is that if this is allowed to remain at the level of member states, I have lost my voice if I am having an issue. If a member state does not like my face, it does not go to anywhere. And of course, bureaucracy and protocols will also hamper the member states from approaching the dispute settlement. So that's the problem we're going to have here. Now, let me move to another end of it, which is the issue of tariff lines. We have about 429 tariff lines under sensitive. We also have 183 tariff lines that are under exclusive. And then we have 5,512 tariff lines that are liberalized, open. The point is this: how many traders are aware of these? 1. 2, how prepared are the custom officials, both in terms of knowledge of all of this, as well as the implementation modalities? 3, these are going to be moderated or governed by rules of origin. How many of the customs have been trained on this? Not only Nigeria, but many other African countries. How prepared are we? Now, I am aware that in terms of preparation, I can tell you, I'm a member of the National Action Committee and a small committee also set up by the federal government looking at the preparations so far. And I believe that the Honorable Minister, I'm not speaking, Honorable Minister will be speaking, who is the chairman of the Action Committee, will be speaking. There's a World Press Conference today, which he will be addressing with some of us there. And they are going to give details of Nigeria's preparations. And if you look at preparations that we evaluated a few days back, you will see that Nigeria has gone very far in terms of preparation. And this is the very first time.
Let me just put on hold. Sorry,
Dr. has actually raised very pertinent issues. And these are some of the concerns that I've had when, I got this information in the initial time. The issues you have raised are very fundamental. And if they are not addressed at this very stage, and we get into this deal, then along the line, we might be facing a very difficult situation, or sustaining the business. Now, that's why, Claire, perhaps, if you allow me, to bring in Francis Anatog here. Okay, he's gone. He's gone, all right, sorry. So,
okay. I wanted to bring in Professor Ango here to look at the aspect that both Professor Remo and Dr. Ken Ukoha have both raised. That's the issue of dispute, resolution, and how it affects member states and the private citizens. Because I know that this is one of the issues, that have also plagued ECOWAS and other, regional economic communities. What are your thoughts about that?
Because, like has been stated, we have our own dispute mechanism whereby individuals can take, we have even an ECOWAS court. I believe maybe this is something that need to be adjusted. We are just starting this process. I think, having dispute to be at national levels will not solve much of the problems. I think individuals and individual businesses whose rights one way or another have been infringed need to have the right, to go and seek for some kind of intimidation of somebody, to correct those problems. Like, for example, the cases mentioned by the chairman of the National Association of Traders of what happens or what happened in South Africa and what is happening still in Ghana. Those are personal issues. Those are issues that need individuals whose rights one way or another have been infringed and whose business interests have been affected to have they should have the ability to actually go and seek for some form of intervention. And I think it's better handled at that level than at national levels. But then, this is just starting, and we will not get everything correct, but as time goes on, and especially given the size of Nigeria in this arrangement, I believe we can negotiate and bring in and make adjustments as it is. I think what needs to be done also, just like Prof said, is to ensure that we domesticate some of these things. Our assembly, National Assembly, where they need to come in, they should come in, and enact the necessary laws. And then, of course, since we have the National Committee, virtually today everybody is a member except me. I mean, from what I can see, we are prepared. Obviously, I'm comfortable that we have made so much arrangements, or we are working towards ensuring we get the maximum benefit from this. Remember, just like the chairman said, unlike most agreements, that you see all over the world, where Nigeria always rush to sign. In this particular case, we didn't rush to sign. We took our time before we signed. And I think that shows there is some deliberate effort, to ensure that we get as much benefit as possible from this arrangement.
Well, we hope that Nigeria is not going to play the usual big brother thing that we have done in the past, because Dr. Kiko had just cited two examples of what happened to our people in South Africa and still happening in Ghana. And Ghana is also part of the ECOWAS system, and to date, we are yet to resolve that very issue now. So it's really a concern for Nigerians. Yes, we, as Oko had mentioned, and of course Professor Remo also did, Nigeria actually studied the pros and cons of this very deal before signing, and we're hopeful that perhaps when we step into it on the 1st of January, that Nigeria's the benefits that we have envisaged will begin to come, gradually. Now let's return to Francis Anatol. Francis, we lost you along the line right there because of bad signals, and you were actually trying to explain out something from the question put to you by Claire. You may have to continue with that, but also I'd like you to add this. Dr. Uko had raised the issue of a dispute settlement mechanism. He talked about tariff lines. He talked about the exclusive and the liberalized. He also talked about training of customs officials, not just Nigerian customs officials, but customs officials from different parts of Africa. If there is any kind of dispute, perhaps if it is personal, how does the person address it, or is it going to be at the national level? Please come in here and clear the air on what could happen if this practice begins on the 1st of January and we begin to experience some impediments, in the course of implementing this very, very interesting business deal in Africa.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's a good question. What happens on the 1st of January? And I think to answer that, let's say what has been happening from the beginning of the year up to, and where are we now, even on the negotiations. And this is a major project that Africa is undertaking. And the negotiations in terms of the rules of origin are still ongoing. Yes, we've achieved about 80% agreement on 80% of tariff lines. But over this December, there were meetings at the Secretariat that started talking about, okay, how is this going to happen? So you will find that before you can start taking advantage of the AFCFTA preferential arrangement, the items that will be liberalized and others will have to be codified in the customs tariff book, for instance. That has not happened, right? We are part of ECOWAS. At ECOWAS level, we've agreed our tariff offer. yes, and that has been submitted. But there are some operational steps that need to happen before these things will now start taking advantage of these things. The other thing to mention is that it is progressive liberalization. For the 90% or 80% that has been agreed that will be liberalized, it is not 100% liberalization from 1st of January. For us in ECOWAS, it's going to take a 10-year period. So the best you can have is that from the 1st of January, the best case is that from the 1st of January, you will have, say, 10% reduction on those areas. But the other point is like if you look at the ETLS, which is the ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme, you have a system that a kind of an opt-in system where you apply to be part of the trade liberalization scheme. And then there will be some kind of verification process and or authentication process, and then your name as a business is now submitted to the secretariat and then circulated to the member countries. Those processes are clear. The processes under AFCFTA is still work in progress. So it is important to know that we are sustaining the political will, the momentum on AFCFTA. But in January, and over the course of the next couple of weeks and months, all these nitty-gritties, all these operational items will be ironed out, and the processes will be clear. So it's not that from 1st of January, the border
when, of course, you're dealing with technology and, of course, internet connections. We do hope that Francis will, his connection will be clear, and then we'll return to him. But let me come back to our studios here, and I'd like Professor Aremu to, deal with this. So, 1st of January, for 32 countries that have ratified, borders will be they'll become borderless. And then trade will be liberalized for some hundreds of goods and services. But even within the RECs, some, countries have overlapping membership, which is very, very conflicting. Yep. I'm sure you are familiar with, as an international relations student, you are familiar with the spaghetti, overflow, which entangles and makes it difficult for them to, to flow. Now, even outside the RECs, member countries are also having overlapping membership with other, non-continental bodies. So how will this make for smooth implementation of this single market?
Thank you very much, Madam, for that explanation of this spaghetti bowl kind of regional economic community treaty we have in Africa. That is known. Even in ECOWAS, we have quite a lot of, we have English speaking, and then we have the Francophone, and then all of them belong to ECOWAS. And then we have the MRU, which is the Mano River Union, also in ECOWAS. Now, those are not fears. They don't have to constitute fears at all. You see, these are learning curves. All those regional blocks, just as he said, and that's what other people have said, the regional economic community are learning curves, right? And we are putting all the learning curves together to be able to assemble them. And that is what has been happening under the negotiations. Let me say one thing. That even before Africa Continental Free Trade Area, and I've been privileged to travel because of my working in the ECOWAS Commission, I've traveled to nearly more than 80% of African countries. And I can see Nigerian companies there. You see, UBA is thriving well in some of these places. GTB are there. Even without this opportunity that African Continental is given. So African Continental is just giving a legal cover for them to operate better than what they have been doing. I've been seeing a lot of Nigerians. I woke up in one country one day, and then near where I was staying in a hotel, it's a petrol station, and they were speaking Yoruba. I thought I was at home. I mean, you
But this is the same experience we are having even under ECOWAS. I mean, you see a lot of Nigerians, but the bottleneck still persists, and that is why, in the first place, we had to close our borders.
Yes, that is where I'm going. That even without that, our people are eager to move out. All what we need to do, as we have been talking about, is just to be able to create that legal opportunity that will allow them to be able to enjoy a more profitable activity where they are going. And that is the subject of discussion. Now, and we have been doing that. National Action Committee, they are doing that. Only it's not finalized yet. But January 1st, it's not that, all goods are at the border, they want to enter Nigeria. And secondly, let me say this. If we are not member of African Continental Free Trade Area, a Chinese company that has been operating in South Africa can actually put its own factory in Benin and use ECOWAS trade liberalization to enter Nigeria.
But the same thing,
I'm coming. You have not achieved anything.
Yes.
Because once that Chinese company that enters South Africa, but now having another affiliate, either as a branch or subsidiary or as an associate, those are three definitions of IMF, operating in Cotonou, he can use ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme to enter free Nigeria market. And we have no right to be able to use any dispute settlement to say they cannot. Because they are ECOWAS corporate citizens already. So Nigeria is more prepared, just as Ken said, in this area. We might have even discussed this issue more than many other countries.
Does country of origin and rules not apply in that instance?
Wait, no.
It doesn't, okay.
Madam, if I establish my factory in Nigeria Republic, you understand? Hello, it's a corporate citizen of that country.
Correct.
Therefore, it can export products to Nigeria.
Precisely.
If a Chinese company operating first of all in South Africa now register itself in Republic of Benin, it's a corporate citizen of Republic of Benin, and its product can enter Nigeria under ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme because it's already a corporate citizen. Therefore, there is no need to be afraid of some of these things. Why? Because Nigerian people we are just like elephant that doesn't know it's big. Anybody see it big. So we should actually apply that kind of opportunity we have. We don't have any problem in this area. What we need to do is to tidy up our legal environment, particularly domesticating what we already say we ratify and do, and put at AU headquarters, and then we're okay. Look, 2 weeks ago I was in Ghana to actually train the chief negotiators of ECOWAS countries on the investment protocol, which is the next phase. And let me tell you, participants from Nigeria participated well more than other countries. What are we really bothered about? No, we are doing well. So what we need to do is to forget about the fear and then take the opportunity facing us. Biggest country in the entire continent, going into this particular area, we should tidy up whatever thing we are doing at home. Then two, make sure, which have been referred to I think by one of our people, make sure we actually work very well in terms of trade facilitation. Give custom a very good opportunity to operate with modern equipment, and also ensure that what they are doing is better than what they have been doing. Now, we were in a conference in Calabar one time, and somebody told me, he said our border is porous, and it's an official of government. I said, if our border is porous, what are you doing there? You need to do this thing. The people manning the border will not come from angels in heaven. You are the one to do it. You are the one that make it porous. So we should be able to actually put people under action to make sure they do their work now. Because they don't do their work, well, there is nothing we can do. Dumping will continue.
So invariably, there's nothing like a porous border when this single market starts. And
no.
You are the head of traders in Nigeria. We talk about some goods that should not be imported into the country, the ones that we have advantage of, the ones that like rice, for instance. And if this single market begins, are you going to admit rice from other parts of Africa, for instance?
I'm sorry, let me just say this. Sorry, sir.
No, go ahead.
I'm very sorry. You see, let me say this one. A product can come from Europe and then land in an ECOWAS country.
Yes, in
you understand? And then a terrible importer into that country can create a label and put it. It will not appear like a product coming from ECOWAS and then enter the country. It's not the genuine one I'm talking about. It's the one that the trade infraction cost by non-members of the economic integration, which is more or less a collaboration of the economic agents, which government may not know. I won't say government know about it. So that is the one we are talking about. That's the one that is injurious to economic integration, not to corporate citizen that has a right to operate in that particular country. No.
All right, it's very interesting, really, you know, as well as complex as well. And by the time we take off on the 1st of January, of course, you members of the offsetting committees involved in this will monitor it and see how it's going, you know, and before the first half of the year, we'll be able to understand the real concept of this trade liberalization in Africa. Francis, you're back. I don't know if you give him time to land. You know, Francis has been trying to talk to us and he's not been able to land due to poor signals. Francis, please start from where you stopped, if you can still recall, and please try to land before the signal goes off again.
Okay, so I don't know what you heard, but I think what I was trying to say is reacting to the point about what happens on the 1st we are still moving, we are still negotiating some areas, we are still trying to establish the procedures and processes on how this will work. And so, some of the things that you will need to have in place for somebody to get to the border and exercise the preferential the rights, the preferential treatment are not yet in place. I mean, like I said, what has been negotiated needs to make its way to the customs tariff book. The rules of origin and all of that will need to be there. You need to be able to get to NACIMA or the agency responsible for certificate of origin to give you the certificate of origin that will apply under AFCFTA. So some of these processes and operational requirements are being done and will continue beyond 1st of January. But that does not diminish the symbolic importance of 1st of January, because this is arguably the biggest project that Africa has taken. So that political will is enormous, and we need to sustain it. And that's one of the things that 1st of January represents. The other point I want to make is that that the liberalization does not mean that that 1st of January you get 100% duty relief. The answer is no. For us in ECOWAS, the liberalization would happen over a 10-year period. So you will see, for those products that we've identified that will be liberalized, you will see progressive reduction in the duties on those product lines. But it's not that come 1st January, you come and say, I'm from Africa, here's a bag of rice, for instance, I have to enter duty-free because I'm from Africa. No, that's not what's going to happen.
All right, Francis, thank you. Let's put you on hold because I have 1 or 2 questions for you. We'll put you on hold and take a short break, and then when we come back, I'll give you those questions.
My name is Nando Jamda Mohammed. Stevita. Hussein Musa. Roduna Joel Chinji. Said Musa. I'm a carpenter. I've been doing this for more than 8 years now. And I said plantain. Nakai Chimami Shekara Uku. I've been selling my tomatoes for about 10 years now, and I do it for a better Nigeria. And you can see how we are doing our small little work to make Nigeria great. As you can see, I'm a technician and I'm doing it to help myself and to help my generation. Business. Ina yin wannan domin ci gaban kasar Najeriya. For a better
This message is from the National Orientation Agency.
Una don hear say dem dey rape about 35% of them girl pikin, and even them women sef. Some of them, they even die in the process. Emotional trauma uncle, it dey make some of them be like say they no dey this world again, they don't go, but they still they live like ghosts. Some of them, shame don't kuku make them go kill themselves. E no good oh. This no be our culture. It no fit be the African way. But we can't allow this kind of yet enjoy body with us so they loud well. If you know they fear law where man put, you know they fear Baba God there. You self, you where they cover mouth so you see many wanna they happen. You know what here when the Oyibo talk say problem where they bring come out, they solve and sharply. Remember, person wey feel rape, if it's a key person, oh, if it be you, if it be your pikin, if it be person them where you love well. So make we learn to carry women them like diamond where we be. No grief for rape, oh.
Dialogue, empathy, love, and unity. These are vital components of nation building.
For all to be well, we appeal that we should refrain from volatile, provocative, inciting messages and language.
Let's build and not destroy.
After a 7-goal demolition at the hands of the champions last time out, will Crystal Palace enjoy a Merry Christmas when they visit Villa Park? This Saturday, it's Aston Villa versus Crystal Palace on the Premier League Live, showing on the NTA network from 3:30 p.m. The Premier League Live is brought to you by Axis Bank, Baba Ijebu, Lipton, and Close Up, in association with Gold.com.
It's Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service, and we're looking at the intricacies of having a single African market come January 1, 2021. Now, gentlemen, again, I'm looking at the issue where you have very big economies like Nigeria, going into a marriage with smaller, economies in Africa, and you have many Nigerians. Although the big businesses or big companies may not have the same challenge, but the SMEs, the small, businesses would go into these smaller economies, eclipse them, and you think there won't be issues? And I think that's why you raise the issue of dispute settlement. Exactly. So how can we forestall this kind of issue? It is happening in Ghana, where you have Nigerian traders in Ghana, having their shops closed because of whatever they, presume the Nigerians are taking their jobs. The same thing is happening in South Africa, xenophobic attacks and all that, all because of contest for, jobs and skills.
Business, yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much, Claire. I think the reason why I escalated this matter is because of what we are passing through at the present time. And of course, if you look at the dispute settlement mechanism there, it is coming not from Nigeria, but it's at the African Union level. Now, if it is a continental agreement, a continental mechanism, and you take a look at the composition of traders. In fact, statistics have it that there is no country in Africa where you don't find Nigerian traders. And I can tell you, go to all the markets that are in Africa, 55 member countries of Africa today, you find about 67% of occupants, of business actors are Nigerians.
What is the position of your members?
Now, that's the point I'm coming to. Now, if this is the case, and now we are having these problems here and there, they say the taste of the pudding is in the eating. And the test of AFCFTA will be what we are already noticing, what we are passing through. Now, why don't we, and this is where I'm coming to now, two recommendations. One is on the side of our parliamentarians, because I have not seen our parliament coming to school on this particular AFCFTA. I have seen many other parliamentarians, I'm sorry to say this, in many other countries, they take charge. Because number one, I looked at the issue of ratification. Of course, there is a school of thought, legally saying, look, government executive has the power to ratify. But I also came back and I looked at our constitution, section 12, said that no international agreement can come into force except it is
the National
ratified by the National Assembly. Now, if you take a look again and survey section 89 of the Constitution, it also empowers the Parliament on oversight function. Oversight means that you must oversee, supervise all of what is going on. Interrogate them. But you cannot interrogate what you do not know. The question now comes, what level of knowledge? In fact, I am yet to see the issue, the subject of AFCFTA discussed, debated at the Parliament. If we had such, what I would have been seeing at this point, or what I would have been trying to see, is one, a Parliament that has come to say this is the area of conflict between the AFCFTA on one hand and our domestic laws. Okay. Two, these are some of our domestic laws that may be in conflict with the AFCFTA. Take for instance, Act number 7 of 1989, which is on the prohibition of export of certain commodities, such as rice, maize, yam. They are all there. Now, if you don't amend these laws, how are they going to facilitate the benefits that we are seeing to accrue for the AFCFTA? On the other side of it, on the dispute settlement, I would have seen a Parliament that would trigger some of this. You don't leave everything at the level of the executive. Trigger some of this because they are also legally related. They are also law on themselves. But to bring some kind of succor, I want a situation where the dispute settlement mechanism, and that's why, by the way, I was of the thinking, in fact, I am of a radical opinion, that every protocol and annex must be concluded before the implementation of the AFCFTA starts. But that has not been the same. That's not been the way. So that we see it with our eyes clear and see exactly where we are plunging into. But what we are seeing right now. So let me conclude by saying that the recommendation that I would have wanted to see is a situation where the dispute settlement mechanisms can be there, but then we have arbitration. The 8 regional economic communities recognized by the African Union have arbitration tribunals, arbitration centers. Why don't we convert this to arbitration centers for the AFCFTA so as to give opportunity for persons, citizens, traders, manufacturers, business actors, transporters, even within the services sector, who have their rights infringed upon, so that they can also have. I think this can be triggered by the Nigerian government, perhaps via the Parliament.
You have been so particular, or so meticulous about this issue of dispute mechanism, and that appears to be a very fundamental issue with respect to this. Yes, it's very fundamental, and I want to bring in Professor Ushao Ango here. What do you make of that? You've just listened to our man here, Dr. Ukoha, and he actually painstakingly, reeled out some of the issues that we may have along the line of the implementation of this single trade in Africa.
The Well, I will just differ a little bit with him in just one respect. I don't expect that all protocols, and all agreements must be concluded before we go in. Normally, this is a process that will take some time. But having said that, I agree with him that it will be good if we can combat the regional framework we have, in terms of dispute, issue of dispute management. In addition to that, I will expect that we, especially we, Nigeria, the way we fear whatever will happen to this, or some people have some fears, that is the same way other countries will also have fear that Nigerians will dominate everywhere. Just like has been stated that quite a number of traders all over Africa are Nigerians. But I think we, as a member of the AFCTA, I think we need to position ourselves further, by taking advantage of those trading networks that we have, because there are networks in some ways. We can take advantage of those, to actually be very dominant economically. And I also hope that along the line we'll have better infrastructure, because that is a major challenge of this trade agreement. Infrastructure is a problem. Moving from one country to another, it's easier to move to Europe, it's easier to move to Asia than to move within Africa. Talk less of moving goods. Some people have said that it takes getting to 700 hours sometimes at the borders to clear goods between African countries, unlike what happens with other countries. So we hope that we can take advantage of this, and I hope and I believe that these processes will take time, but along the line, if we are consistent, I think we'll get some advantage. And one of the things that will make us consistent is that this action plan, for example, that we have, the committee should not be just for now or before implementation. It should be a continuous thing. We should at every point review our performance, look at what we have achieved, and find ways of especially encouraging other sectors to take advantage of the arrangement. As long as we continue to do that, I believe Nigeria will be better for it.
So, staying with you. You just indicated, not you, Francis indicated that there are over 5,500 products, liberalized. We don't know the product types and product lines. But considering the fact that we are still diversifying, our economy is still within the diversification process, we are also still industrializing. Just few days ago, we had a manufacturer come here on our program, to lament, about the state of manufacturers in this country. Industries are almost not able to find their feet. So, is it wise to throw, our market open to the continent at this stage when industries and manufacturers are yet to find their feet?
Just like I said, the truth of the matter is that as we fear, what will be the consequence to us, so are other countries also fearing what will be the consequence to them. They think, given our size, we will just go and dominate them. Now, having said this, we are also in Nigeria where we have a lot of initiatives, which I think should be encouraged. Our manufacturing base used to be very vibrant, and we know why we had some issues with a lot of them. One of them, of course, being energy. Now, so initiatives like, for example, these gas pipelines that are being constructed all over, which will reduce cost of energy, should be encouraged, as much as possible. Secondly, we should take note of the fact that in certain sectors, like has been stated by earlier speakers, we are already dominant, not just in manufacturing, in services, for example. We have reasonable presence of banks, Nigerian banks all over Africa. We have now in manufacturing, like I said, in cement especially. So I think we don't have much to fear, especially if we continue along the trajectory of encouraging, like I said, the various initiatives that will reduce the cost of manufacturing and improving infrastructure. If we have infrastructure all over Africa, like for example, if we have train services all over Africa, which means goods can move easily rather than just every time you need to move goods, say to Ghana or to somewhere you have to go by the sea, that will help. I know this will take a long time, but I think any effort towards infrastructure development will also help, especially linking Africa, just like we used to have that philosophy of Lagos to Mombasa transport system, where we were thinking of constructing roads right from Lagos all the way to Mombasa. The same way we should have initiatives. I know we don't have the resources now, but we should have the dream, and the initiative and evolve various measures to see that we have real cutting across all Africa. If we have that, I assure you, trading among us will be very, very much easy. And then one thing that I need to say is that as much as possible, and I hope the committee will continue to work on that, is we shouldn't rely on the trade that has been going on all along. In Africa, we have been trading all over for thousands of years, and we have been trading in raw, primary products. I think, Nigeria can do better, in actually trying to improve, on the value of whatever we are exporting, and that will really create a lot of jobs for us and make us be at an advantage. But I know that whatever it is, Nigerians will be up to it. Even if you open the door as it is, I believe Nigerians will be able to cope, especially given the initiatives that have been done now of lowering energy costs, because that would happen definitely if you have, especially the gas pipelines and things like that, that if they come into operation.
Well, we have heard from virtually all of you here this morning that Nigeria is quite ready for this single market business. But I'd like to bring in the Secretary, Anatog, once more, to know if other African countries are really prepared for this. We can't do it alone. We need other African countries to, of course, to energize the process. What are you hearing from other African countries vis-a-vis the commencement of this business by 1st of January 2021?
Okay, so every African country is preparing to join in their own way. As you imagine, some are moving faster than others, depending on their state of readiness. But one thing is clear. Almost every African country is looking at AFCFTA as a development. If you look at all the indices, you find that we are, be it in terms of trade index, be it in terms of competitiveness, and so on. We are not where we should be compared to the rest of the world. So the AFCFTA is that platform that everybody's rallying around to improve their readiness and improve their capacity to trade. So there are at the AFCFTA Secretariat, fine-tuning what needs to be done, and everybody is excited, really. But like I said, as we go along, we will, all the issues will come out. Will issues come out? Yes. But as the issues come out, we will solve them.
Secretary of the National Action Committee on the African Free Continental Trade Area and Special Assistant to the President on Public Sector Matters. We'd like to appreciate your contribution this morning, and we'll keep an eye on that. You can rest assured. Thank you very much. Back here, Dr. Ukoha, just in 60 seconds. I asked the question, cost of production is very high here with regards to electricity, roads and all that. Now, if we do this, aren't we practically going to, crash everything? If you bring in goods that are relatively, cheaper into the country?
No, if you do complete comparisons with other African countries, you see that Nigeria is, even at the moment, the 4th largest trading country intra-regionally. in the whole of Africa. So South Africa number 1, Zambia number 2, Namibia number 3, and then Nigeria. So we don't have fear in that regard. But I think that one of the things that we need to begin to do now is to look at our infrastructure. For instance, the road linking us to other countries. Look at the Nigeria-Benin road, for instance. Then look at our ports, port infrastructure, congestions here and there, cumbersome procedures. Then look at our prohibition list. Those lists, do we still need them at this moment? Are they still realistic? Then the other side I must drop here before I leave here is Article 7 of the AfCFTA, which talks about information. And I'm looking at this on the trigger of betrayal that we have had. If you recall, when we were negotiating EPA, Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana went behind us and negotiated interim EPA. Today, as we speak, within the Brexit, the same Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana have gone round to UK and have started negotiating. And in fact, Cote d'Ivoire has signed with the UK government. I want to trigger this so that the Nigerian government will be aware. Even under the AfCFTA, we need to bring serious sanctions against any of this kind of things.
Thank you.
All right. Professor Aremu, we are closing.
No, he has, and we've run out of time. Professor Jonathan Aremu, Professor of International Economic Relations, Covenant University, author, and consultant, of course, on the ECOWAS Common Investment Market. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. Dr. Ken Ukoha, as always, it's a pleasure to always have you on our program.
Thank you so much.
President, National Association of Nigerian Traders, we'd like to thank you. Professor Yushao Ango, Professor of Finance and Business Entrepreneurship, Kaduna State University. We appreciate you as always. Thank you.
Yeah, we also like to appreciate those who sent us some tweets, Suleiman Bagana, David Jafaru, Ibrahim Bello, and many others who reached us via tweet. It's been wonderful, that you reached out but couldn't take your tweet. So also want to thank you for being part of the show this morning.
All right, and that's it on today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. Don't forget, keep an eye on the single African market to hit 1st January 2021. I am Claire Delabo Abdul Razak. Bye-bye.
And I'm Kurian Umar. Have a great day.